Greetings, YouTube. Again, forgive me for the poor lighting, but Mandarin's here and I didn't want to disturb her. This past weekend, my wife and I had an opportunity to see the 2014 version of Godzilla. So, I'm going to give this film the kindest possible review I can by comparing it only to other Godzilla movies. I'm not going to compare it to other blockbuster films, and I'm not going to compare it to anything even vaguely resembling anything that has to do with reality. Because this film doesn't exist in anything even vaguely resembling reality. It involves the universe that is Godzilla films. And kind of the build-up to this. My wife and I watched a couple of Godzilla movies over the past couple of weeks. And then came home after the movie and watched a Gamera versus Barugan, which is the monster that has a rainbow. I kid you not. It's Dio's dream. It's a rainbow in the dark. But Godzilla 2014 is a modern reimagining of the original Godzilla. This isn't the Godzilla that's the campy version. This is the Godzilla that terrifies. Though it's a more friendly version than the original. The original was just out to destroy humanity. This Godzilla, it looks a little different. It acts, behaves a little differently than that. And yes, this video is going to have spoilers in it, so if anyone who doesn't want spoilers, then you can just not watch this video any further. So it comes with the concept that the entire class of creature that Godzilla comes from, the kaiju, they don't call it the kaiju, but the class of creature that comes from, which are known as the kaiju, were from our evolutionary past, long before the dinosaurs rose, back when there were huge levels of radiation on our planet, and these creatures subsided off of them. Again, we're going to forget the fact that you can't directly convert energy into mass. We're just going to ignore that fact. And we're going to ignore the fact that when they find a fossilized skeleton, it never occurs to somebody that it's a bigger skeleton than anything that ever walked on the face of the earth in the past. And this doesn't seem to surprise anyone at all. But it does give them the lead-in that the nuclear tests that were done back in the 50s and the 60s were being done in an attempt to take out these creatures, of damaging them or driving them into dormancy. And that when the researchers of a mining company discover a cavern, they release one of these creatures, which is referred to as a moto or moda, something unidentified, terrestrial object. You get the point. Yeah. The military loves acronyms. So this thing shows up, and eventually it finds a mate, which is bad for us, and eventually nature itself essentially summons Godzilla to balance the scales, if you will. Now, it is true that Godzilla doesn't get a huge amount of screen time, and I think that's really important, because when Godzilla gets too much screen time, Godzilla gets campy. Godzilla stops being scary. And you need Godzilla and the other two creatures in the film to keep being scary. So you need to have them have as little screen time as possible without having them be gone completely. And they do a really nice job of that. The other characters are admittedly not as deep as you could have expected in many big budget films, but compared to other Godzilla movies, these people are Shakespearean. Take my word for it. You go look at some of those old Godzilla movies. To call those characters cardboard would be gracious. They were more like tissue paper. So the characters in this film in 2014 are completely and utterly serviceable. They do the job that they have to do. And I enjoyed the roles, the scenes they chewed up, and the lines they delivered, and it was just fun. Again, you have to compare this to other Godzilla movies and to nothing else. So, the big thing is the screen time that Godzilla does get. What do we, the audience, get out of it? And Godzilla is awesome in the most literal definition of that word. He is awe-inspiring. He has a wonderful physicality. And when he cuts back with that roar of his, it's a thing of beauty. It really is. When he's taking on the other two monsters, and they're battling, just destroying entire neighborhoods, mile radiuses of territory being wiped out by this thing, this battle. It was just awesome. It was so much fun to watch. And eventually, you get to have him go mano a mano with the smaller of the two creatures, and he takes it out, and it's quite well done. And my wife's like, why did he have a hard time prior to that? Because my wife thought that the move he used to take the first monster out with wasn't as big as it could have been. She felt that it was lacking something. I didn't. I was okay with it. It wasn't the best thing I've ever seen, but I thought it was okay. However, when he takes the second monster out, my wife nailed it. She said it was like something from Shakespeare. There was just this incredible drama to it. It was just beautiful and terrifying. And there was a little pathos in there. There's a sappy love story, of course. But there was some people willing to sacrifice their lives to save the greater good. So there was a little few heartstrings, that they really did kind of pluck at them. And you got to see that whole esprit de corps with the military people. Though I understand that Halo troops are designed to have that high altitude, low opening, because you're trying to avoid being seen by the enemy. These creatures don't think of us as the enemy. We're bugs. So doing a Halo entrance to the city seemed really cool, utterly pointless. So I didn't understand why they did that. But it looked great. So, I guess that's all that matters sometimes. But the main character was willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good. And that was awesome. Of course he didn't. It was Hollywood. But that's okay. It's also awesome. We get to have a happy ending. We get to have a plausible reason why Godzilla may come back in the future. It was great. I really enjoyed this film. It was a lot of fun. Godzilla looked great. The special effects were solid. Everything had a nice lush feel to it. The sound was solid. It was really nice to see a modern version of a kaiju movie. And this, to me, was better than Pacific Rim. I saw Pacific Rim not long ago, and I didn't like it as much as this. This was way better than Pacific Rim. It may have had fewer monsters in it, but it was way better than Pacific Rim. And it was less silly. Because this was taking place in the Godzilla universe, and that's how they put it forward. And I never forgot that for a second. I never really tried to shoehorn it into our reality, because the Pacific Rim presented itself as our world, and then they tried to tack kaiju on top of it, and you can't do that. If you enter this from the world of the kaiju, then you can compare it to other kaiju movies. And compared to those, this was great. They did an incredibly good job, and I had a lot of fun, and I'm glad I saw it. And if they make a sequel, and it's done by the same director, or at least can have the same vibe from another director, I will go see it as well. I don't go to many first-run films, but this is one of the ones I enjoyed. I may go see Guardian of the Galaxy when it comes out, because I'm still holding out hope that that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm praying it's going to be Fifth Element. Kind of Fifth Element combined with Farscape. That would be cool. Or a cartoon I saw recently, The Cool Parts of Star Wars. So, tell me, have you seen the new Godzilla? If you did, what did you think about it? Were you able to view it strictly as a kaiju movie, or did you find yourself trying to explain it away with these things can't work in reality because physics won't let them? And I have been guilty of that in the past myself, I freely admit it. But comparing this from one Godzilla movie to another Godzilla movie was great.